Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
US birth rates just hit another record low. What do you think is the leading cause of this? My coworker pays $2,300 a month for daycare for their 3 kids. Edit, I'm told this is cheap for 3 kids, which bolsters this point even more. And that's a bargain. $1,000 a month per kid is the going rate where I live, and I hear that's low. I wish it were $1,000. I'm paying $1,800 for 1 kid. It turns out that when starter homes cost $500,000 and childcare is basically a second rent payment, people start treating having a kid like a luxury hobby they can't afford. This is our family. We bought our first home in our late 30s and then had 2 kids. The home cost over $500K and the daycare is almost as much as our monthly mortgage payment. If you don't mind me asking, what do you do that you could afford a $500,000 home? My wife and I make 6 figures combined, but the idea of paying $500,000 over the course of 30 years for what used to be a standard-sized home just seems outrageous. Like, it's almost out of principle that we don't buy a house at this point. It feels like a scam now. Gestures vaguely at everything. Cries in broke. I just call it, cries in American. What keeps me from starting a family for years was the lack of money. Now that I'm in a place where I might be able to, I'm a little bit too old and I can't find a partner. By the time my wife and I were financially able to have kids, we were too old to have them. Then we spent an absurd amount of money trying to get pregnant. When that didn't work, we decided that we were meant to have dogs and to travel. More people are realizing that parenthood is a choice and not a requirement. Edit, thank you so much for the award. 2 awards in one day. You guys are awesome. I've never gotten 4 in one day. I hope you guys know how awesome you are. Y'all are really taking this to heart, and it makes me glad to see so many child-free people out there. Keep on keeping on. On top of that, people are talking more often and more honestly about how hard parenting is. Well, the issue is that you do everything right and still get a fucked up kid. People hate that truth. It's another scary reality that more and more intelligent people have to deal with. This is the biggest reason that I think a lot of people just don't want to accept. Because you can change laws and make parental leave more generous and make childcare more affordable, but you simply can't force people to have children if they don't want them. And a lot of people, especially women, are finally realizing that motherhood is now optional. For thousands of years women didn't have a choice in whether or not they became a mother. Socially and biologically it was simply expected of you. But now they get a choice, and a lot of them are realizing what a raw deal motherhood often is and are opting out entirely. Yep, there have been plenty of studies on this, and all of the common reasons that people list, like cost of living, healthcare, childcare, housing, work-life balance, etc., actually don't really have much of an effect. Places where those things aren't as much of a concern still have similar birth rates. What the studies show is that the 2 biggest reasons are access to family planning methods, birth control, condoms, abortion, and education. The more informed people are and the more options that they have results in a lot of people simply choosing to use the tools available to them to not have kids. Accidental pregnancies have created in the past couple decades, especially among teens, and the average age of first-time mothers has shot up into the 30s as a result. These days, most people are only having kids if they really want to and are waiting for the optimal time to do so. That's why birth rates are down. Not because raising a kid is hard these days. Raising a kid has always been hard. The difference is that people used to have a lot of accidental pregnancies and would simply respond, well, I guess now I have to work 80 hours at the factory and be an absent parent to make this work. But now they go, damn, I would have to work 80 hours and be an absent parent if I had a kid right now, so I won't. People cannot afford to raise kids. Not only that, but the expectation that parents be eyes on the kids at all times. Yep, if people see kids out by themselves these days, they'll likely call the cops. This would be unthinkable when I was a kid in the 90s. And it's not as if there's any more danger, just more perceived danger thanks to social media blowing things out of proportion. Brother, I can hardly afford to take care of myself. And let's not forget, our parents are aging. I wasn't interested in kids because as the oldest girl, I had to deal with my siblings and that was enough for me. Last summer I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, with a bleak prognosis. My oldest brother was upset because taking care of parents would fall to him as there are no more girls. I never wanted to do that. Like I was just clamoring too. Your brother sounds like a real asshole. I hope you have other people in your life who will be there to support you. Unbelievable. I'm so sorry about your diagnosis. The OBGYN in my area closed, and the nearest one is 90 miles away, but I can't imagine. The OB ward at my local hospital closed as well. You are basically screwed if you have a pregnancy-related emergency here. Closed one with one is 45 minutes driving fast, or a full care one is about 2 hours away. Yeah, everyone is saying it's the economy, and yes, that might be the number one reason people. Very, very valid. But we've starting regressing socially since 2016. Women have been losing access to their bodily autonomy, losing access to legal protection for medical decisions, losing access to life-saving procedures, and losing access to basic fucking healthcare. It is simply unsafe for women to get pregnant. And the people in power have promised to make it even more dangerous. Not to mention they do jack shit to protect women from one of, if not the most, dangerous parts of pregnancy, being murdered. And that is only getting worse with the GOP assault on healthcare. Fully supported by many of those rural voters who are directly impacted by their voting choices. I've got friends acquaintances in the eastern rural part of my state who complain about how bad things have gotten there and are angry that my part of the state, which generates most of the money in the state, is still doing okay. They do not like that we are willing to tax ourselves extra to have the basic services and nice things they are missing out on. It's a combination of three things: affordability, lower teen pregnancy rates, and greater social acceptance of people who don't want kids. Like, I'm sure there have always been a significant minority of people who just don't want kids, but they had them anyway because it was expected. Now those people don't have to pretend anymore. Also the fact that women can be independent. I'm sure many women who didn't want children in the past had them because they had to get married. It hasn't been that long that women could be fully financially independent in the US. Globally, education for women is the most important factor for lowering birth rates. I've heard this is the biggest cause. If women have more choices, they are less likely to have kids. We're all fucking tired and broke as hell. Next question. Can't afford food. Birth care is expensive. If you need an abortion for health reasons, you may not be able to get one, or even if you miscarry. Childcare is expensive, children are expensive, rent is expensive, everything is too expensive to finish the sentence. $500 a month to unlock the full comment. Most people are talking about economics, which is totally valid, but I wonder if there is a significant number of people who believe it is unethical to bring children into a world that looks like it could go sci-fi dystopian on us at any moment. My kid's 6 and 4 and I'm starting to wonder if they'll actually have careers or families 30 years from now. I'm wondering if the Earth will still be habitable by humans in 30 years. It'll be habitable, however, the famine squeeze is going to be real. When that happens, not if, there is going to be a lot of civil unrest. No government is currently prepared for this scenario playing out either. Animals when faced with hardships or stress usually have less babies. Humans are no different. I just got a vasectomy last week. I'm doing my part. Women get zero support from pregnancy and throughout motherhood. Inadequate maternity leave, lost productivity and advancement in their careers because of childcare needs. The burden is rarely equally shared between men and women. The gender roles are outdated and women are finding out how much they really sacrifice to become mothers. Thanks for saying this. I know many couples where they defiantly can afford 1 or 2 more kids, but the mom is completely against it. The reason, even when being SAHM, the expectation of her is to do basically everything without help of her spouse, so she refuses completely to have other child to have more work on the plate. To the contrary, I said I didn't want to have kids and later met my husband. We now have 3 because he is an equal partner. He is a person I share everything with, from expenses to the care and education of our kids. So no one says that the roles at home need to change so women want to have more children. If you don't change the couple dynamics, more women won't find it appealing to be in charge of everything. Your situation is definitely not the norm. Men usually don't give up their careers to raise children and women lose so much ground during her childbearing years. For single mothers it's even harder to catch up, which means she'll have to work longer to save up enough to retire. It's been a losing proposition for women since forever, and maybe women are weighing their options and realizing that they don't have to automatically become mothers. It would be great if we supported them more, but if anything society is supporting them less. Almost every business, privately owned or corporate, is trying to find every excuse to freeze or reduce compensation to their employees to reduce their overhead. Almost every business, privately owned or corporate, is trying to find every excuse they can to raise prices on the products or services they provide to the public. Almost every business, privately owned or corporate, knows that their employees and the public are one and the same, but expect other businesses to act against their financial interests and pay their employees more or charge the public less. They know full well that doing things the way they are isn't sustainable. But the corporate businesses, their charters require them to increase profits quarter after quarter or year after year. The employment contracts for the CEOs require the same thing, and with golden parachute arrangements, the CEOs always expect to make a fortune, then leave for the fallout of any short-sightedness to fall on the next guy. Wealth inequality is worse now than it ever got during the Great Depression, but because meaningless entertainment is relatively cheap, food isn't entirely unaffordable yet, and there's been literal decades of propaganda efforts to depict any ideas of doing things better or differently as anti-American. The very masses that should by all rights be rising up and demanding that government do something about it are divided, with roughly half of them actively voting against their own interests. All of this makes the choice of having children, bringing them into a world on the brink of economic, political, and social collapse, where their lives are virtually guaranteed to be worse than your own, and doing so will also make your already difficult life even harder. Well, it becomes a very obvious and emphatic no. Hey now, you can't leave out the environmental collapse. We're already at plus 1.4 degrees Celsius with a super El Niño on the horizon. We are going to see mass deaths due to record heat waves and wet bulb events by summer 2027.